Hello, I'm Jerry Stewart. It's a beautiful flag, isn't it? All the colors, the stripes, the stars. It's a beautiful flag. But is it just a pretty piece of cloth? Or is it something more? Is it something with authority and power? Is it something that actually can give us courage? I'm about to tell you a story that is one of the most amazing war stories you will ever hear. We're all familiar with that picture where we see the Marines that are raising that flag during World War II. But what most people don't know is they raised that flag on an island called Iwo Jima. And they raised that flag on the top of a mountain there called Suribachi. Most people don't know why that flag was raised there, and what most everyone does not know is that there were two flags raised on that mount, and actually the one that we see that is the famous picture was actually the second flag. So, stick around with me here a moment, and I'm going to tell you something that you've never known, that you can impress and mystify those that do not know the story, and we can learn the power of the flag. About 24,000 Marines had set out to travel across the Pacific doing what they called island hopping, going from one island to the next, each island being attacked with the ships shooting their bombs, and then after the bombs had dropped, the Marines would come in, establish the beach, destroy the enemy, and then move to another island. Well, this particular island, Iwo Jima, became the single most horrific battle, and believe it or not, of the roughly 24,000 Marines that were killed in World War II, almost 7,000 of those Marines were killed on this island of Iwo Jima in a time of less than 30 days. I had the tremendous opportunity a few years back to actually interview three of the men, three Marine veterans who were there at Iwo Jima. And the story that they told me, interestingly enough, I've got that story today on audio, and if you listen to this story and you really are enthusiastic about hearing the bigger story as told by the men who were there, then I'm going to give you a link at the end where you can go and make a small purchase of, I think it's less than $4. They told me in my interviews that they expected that island to be an easy win, that the island had been bombed for 72 days by the U.S. forces, and they believed there was no one left on the island. Little did they know that the Japanese forces had gone underground into the caves and caverns, and that there were almost 30,000 Japanese who were there waiting for them. They all landed on the beach, and the way they tell the story is when they all came onto the beach, it was glutted with men. They were all there in packs, a huge amount of Marines landing, but not one shot had been fired. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, mortars, bombs, shooting, and before they knew it, as much as a third of the men on that beach were either killed or wounded. And it all happened so by surprise that the men were stuck on that beach and could not move. In the story they told me, you will hear what it was like being on that beach with your comrades lying next to you, many of them dead or wounded, and you're trying to figure out what's going to happen. It took them 3 days to finally secure that beach. But there were still thousands of Japanese forces in those caves, and they could not leave until all of the Japanese forces were either dead or captured. Oh, one other thing. The Japanese had made an oath that they would not surrender, that they would not be captured. They were going to fight to their death. Well, the men tell the story of how between the snipers, between the mortars, between trying to sleep at night and the Japanese soldiers coming into their bunkers and slitting their throats, that it was getting to be almost more than they could take. So the commanding officer was working to see what could be done, perhaps to, first of all, show that the island was now in control by the Americans, but second of all, perhaps to give those men a shot of a remembering of why they were there. The commanding officer told one of the men that I interviewed, take this flag onto the island and get a group of men together and have them go to the top of Suribachi, if you can, he said. And if you get to the top, I want you to raise that flag. Now imagine the picture. They're up on this Suribachi, maybe 500-600 feet high. You look out in the harbor and it's covered with great ships. You look down below and you see the men on the beach. You see the dead. You see the wounded. You see those who were there trying to figure out what their next order is going to be. And at that moment that those men got to the top of Suribachi and put up that flag, everyone down below saw, all of the ships in the harbor saw. And you will hear these men talk about how, what a great and wonderful sound of all those ships tooting their horns and all of the men down below shouting. And they all agreed that seeing that flag flying on Suribachi gave them a new hope, a new commitment, a new confirmation, a new courage. Well, the reason that there ended up being a second flag, interestingly enough, is that when it was announced that the flag was on Suribachi, the commanding officer discovered that the Secretary of Navy was coming to the area, and he had mentioned that he wanted that flag for a memoir. And so as soon as he heard it, that the Department of Navy secretary wanted the flag, he said, absolutely not. He said, my men fought for this flag, they died for this flag, and that's our flag. So interestingly enough, even after the first flag had gone up, and the men who put up that first flag were back down, there was actually a second group that was sent, and a second flag was erected. That's the picture that you see. Now, some have said it looks like it's a staged shot, and that's why they had the second flag. Absolutely not true. In fact, Joe Rosenthal, the man who took the picture, he was a member of the press, and he ended up getting an award for that picture. He later told the story that when they raised that flag, he brought his camera above his head and he couldn't even look through the viewfinder. It was just one of those things. Now, it took 27 days for the Marines to finally finish that job. And as I said before, the most deadly single battle in the history of all the Marines, over almost 7,000 killed in less than 1 month. So I tell you the story because of this. There are some today that say there's nothing special about the flag, that the flag is just a piece of cloth and that it doesn't mean anything beyond that. I promise you, if you could have seen the faces and heard the stories of these men that I interviewed, I will guarantee you that flag played a great part in giving those Marines the courage, the second wind, the more powerful persevering and persistence to keep going. And that's where we are today. I encourage you this Veterans Day, if you don't have your flag up, put it up. And I would encourage you that even though you might be thinking after Veterans Day you want to take it down, don't take it down. Leave it up there. Every day when you go to work, when you go to school, wherever you are, you walk by that flag and you look up and you see those stars. Because every one of those stars represents one of our states, and inside every one of the states are you and I. Those stars represent us. And as you look at the blue, and sometimes you feel like quitting, remember that the blue represents perseverance, refusing to quit. Look at the white. The white represents purity. Now, understand, we're not perfect people. We will never be perfect people. But we're to do our best as a nation. But most of all, as you look at the flag, you look at the red. And the red represents the shedding of the blood of those who have died to keep us free. As I said at the beginning, if you would like your own audio of that actual interview that I did with those veterans, you can see in a moment right at the bottom where you can go. We've made it almost, less than $4 to buy the audio. And once you have it, you can share it with your library, your church, maybe give it to a fellow veteran, and do your best to encourage our veterans on this Veterans Day weekend. Do your best to wave your flag. I'm Jerry Stewart. If you like this common sense, please let me know that. Give me a like. If you don't like it, give me a dislike. Give me some feedback. Give me some words. Give me an opportunity to keep bringing these to you. And most of all, if you can, I would love for you to subscribe to this site. Okay? God bless you. God bless our flag. God bless our veterans. God bless America. Goodbye.